Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday live stream. So today we're going to take a little bit of a detour of what we usually talk about, which usually talk about digital assets, crypto, Bitcoin, those types of things, and the macro events that are happening on behind the scenes. But today we talked about this yesterday about real estate. And it's one of those sectors that I'm into and that actually dwarfs my crypto portfolio. I know a little bit of a shocking thing for some people, but today I want to talk about why that is and why I'm excited about it moving into the future. Now, there's a big thing that we should talk about. In crypto and digital assets, we know that we have quite a bit of volatility. And because of that, there is sometimes a little bit of stress associated with it. Now, some people would say, I have no stress, Rob. I have no issues whatsoever, and I can see it drop 50% in a day, and I'm fine. Great. And some people say, you know what, I freak out over 5%. So this right here, when we talk about real estate, it's a little bit of diversification of your portfolio. And that's the big thing we're trying to get today. Not that this is for everybody, because I know it's not. But I think there's some people out there that say, you know what, I would like to have a secondary revenue stream or a tertiary or something that I can take a look at. And as time goes on, just kind of funds come in and I can have that stockpile of cash and redeploy that into these massive dips where everybody just keeps talking to me about buying the dip, buying the dip, buying the dip. And I'd love to, but I'm all out of money because I keep buying all these dips. So maybe it would behoove some of us to take a little bit of a secondary stream. And today what I did is I talked with a friend of mine here in Puerto Rico. And this is Robert Crager. He is called the Flip Flop Flipper. Here he is in Bayamón over in PR. And this gentleman has decades of experience, 30 plus years. And what he's talking about here is just the basics of real estate. And what I did is we actually sat down and we had a discussion. This is about 18 minutes long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Robert in after I play the pre-recorded video so you guys can kind of get your feet wet about what this is. And then we can start to talk about, and you can ask Robert any question that you might have about why he's into real estate and how to get started and everything else. And also there's some guidelines afterwards. So without further ado, let me pull this up and you guys can watch the pre-recorded video. This is me and Robert Crager. And we are
on YouTube. I'm the Flip Flop Flipper
here talking about.
I'm the Flip Flop Flipper because, well, my wife branded it that way, but I basically have worn flip flops for 25 years, and we live a pretty relaxed life. I was a basketball player in college and then professionally for a small time, but I've really only ever been a real estate investor. I went to work in corporate America for about 6 months, and I was a very bad employee. I was good at my job. I just wasn't good at. I didn't like it. It felt soul crushing to me. And then I had an altercation with a boss, and that ended corporate America for me. And I literally started real estate in a week that I quit my job because a guy named Carlton Sheets said that I could buy real estate and I didn't need a lot of money. And I was young enough and dumb enough to believe him. And I didn't have a lot of money. So I quit a job, bought a house, fixed it up to sell it. And that took years to ever make money on that first project, but I learned everything and I never looked back. I've been, I would call it a value add real estate investor. So I buy the dirty, ugly house on the block and then I fix it up to make it the best looking house on the block and either sell it or rent it. And now fast forward after 3,000 of those deals, we came to Puerto Rico to do the same thing about 7 years ago. And we hit it very well. We were studying markets to find the place to land. And Puerto Rico had a massive hurricane. I'm from Florida. There's a cycle that happens with these hurricanes. And I came because of it with a theory that 5 years out, we would be killing it, that the whole island would be better and that real estate would rise. And that's what proved to be true.
Got it. So this bring me to my next question. I saw a video that you did. I believe the title was, am I gentrifying or am I gentrification of San Juan, Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
Because when you talked about houses that are downtrodden and really bad, and then you do something with them and fix them up, why Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
And then can you just kind of give us into like some of the statistics of why you're doing this here in Puerto Rico, why you're helping out these houses, and why this just attracted you to it?
Yeah. So initially it was that storm, right? And I came here thinking there would be all of this hurricane damage. Well, it turns out there was this generational damage. So the island had never recovered from the the downturn in 2008. And so we had a decade of people had left the island, the economy was bad, and homes were just being, if you let them sit and don't take care of them, they just deteriorate. They don't get better, right? And so there was this massive need to do what I do, which is fix these houses up. And there was also a housing shortage. So we, statistically, when we came to the island, our money went 4 times as far. It doesn't go quite 4 times as far anymore, but it went 4 times as far. And our floor was twice as high as our ceiling was in Florida. Wow. So I had to spend 4 times the amount of money. In a best case scenario, I'd make 20% returns. Right. I come to the island, I get to spread my money out four wide, and my floor was 40% returns. It was freaking amazing. It was just like, oh my gosh. And oh, by the way, there was like a dozen lifetime supply of homes that needed to be fixed up. And there still is. Like, that's why I do the YouTube channel. It's like, I want the island to be lifted up, all ships rise in a rising tide. And I'm just one guy. I mean, I'm a tiny drop in the bucket with what we've done. We've done a couple hundred deals on the island over 7 years, but that's nothing. There's 250 or 300,000 of these zombie homes that are sitting there vacant, that need massive renovations. No one could live in them now. So that means that the local population, they can't rent them. Right. They can't go to the bank and get a loan on them. Right. They have to be bought by a cash person, right, or someone using expensive hard money. And then they have to be renovated so that they could go back into the market. This is why I don't think I'm gentrifying anything, is because I'm just fixing what's already there, and I'm taking something that's completely out of use. In most cases, we're taking things that are completely out of use and then putting them back on the market. So plus the drop in the bucket thing. I love the credit I get on YouTube. Like, you're the problem, and you're the reason that things are so expensive. And I'm like, man, I mean, think about what we've done over 7 years. It's really just a tiny speck on the radar.
Yeah. Yeah. And then just what Robert's talking about here, as far as like with the banks, I mean, I don't know where you are who watch this video, but I can just tell you right now, banks, even in the United States, are very slow to get things done. And over here, it is a snail's pace to actually get any kind of loan, any kind of work, any kind of things that you want to have done as far as like funds. It is very difficult. And we're not talking about like, oh, it'll just be like a week or 2 weeks. We're talking like months to get a loan. I mean, if that.
Months and months. And very much only in the box, right? Like, so if you're trying to borrow on something that's a multifamily, for instance, like your wife likes to do, extremely difficult to get the banks to decide that they will lend on that product. So if it's not a home for someone to live in, and very much in that FHA, conventional VA type loans, they just don't lend the money. They're not friendly to putting I guess it's risky for them. I'm not sure exactly. And someone's going to fix that problem. And when they do, it's going to change things on the island quickly.
Well, let's hope they do, because these houses that, like Robert said, 300,000 houses are just sitting there, just doing nothing. And if you don't have anything, like, that's why there's a housing shortage. Yeah. Because no one can fix them up, and then they don't have the capital to do so. So I guess this would come to the part that would concern people who are watching this video, which is this. The people that are watching, we talked about volatility. We talked about how the markets have responded to tariffs and everything going on. As time goes on, maybe people wouldn't like to have such volatility. So how does the flipper community come into that? And how does that work with, say, someone who says, well, I might be interested in something like that?
Yeah. So obviously we're all going through this tariff thing in real time. Like, it's happened, and I'm basically so unaffected by it. So I don't have a lot of exposure to the stock market. We have a small portion of our money in it. We have a small portion in crypto. And obviously but I don't think the tariffs affected that any more than just regular ups and downs of the week, right? Yeah, so far. Yeah. So for me, tariffs will definitely affect my business. And I can see that in the future, in the not too distant future, prices look like they're going to go up 25% or so. I mean, basically everything that I buy to renovate a house, it comes from China, Mexico, or Canada. Right. Trump's really got it on for China, Mexico, and Canada. And so it's going to directly affect me. What's really nice is that while the world that's in crypto or the world that's in the stock market, they get affected overnight, I have months to prepare for it. So we've actually thought, do we need to start buying materials and storing them up? And so we get a chance to do that if we want to, and we're thinking of that in real time. And so my business stays stable. That's what I like about real estate. I go to bed last night and my portfolio exists. And when I wake up in the morning, it exists. And generally speaking, it goes up. And if it crashes like Bitcoin, then I go all in and I buy a whole bunch more. Or if there's a storm, another storm of the century, we're going to buy more.
But and real quick, and the reason why you can do that is because you have this industry, this business that you have that is the main thing. And that is why, like a lot of people, maybe you yourself are watching, you feel kind of like that anxiety when things go up heavily, or usually when things go down heavily. But you don't have to feel that way. There's a reason why I think Michael Saylor is not so all over the place. It's because he has a multi-billion-dollar company and he has revenue coming in every single day. Now he's doing more things with Bitcoin, I get that. But I think this is where people would say, like, I'm kind of tired of some volatility. Maybe I want to diversify. Maybe as far as like risk versus reward, I want to look at something else. So flip-flop flipper community, how do people find that and get into it? And how much is it for the flip-flop flipper community?
So the flip-flop flipper, we've got a free community that anyone can join, right? And it's a great place to network, and we do some educational stuff there. But ultimately, the people that are going to do real estate or that want to be closer to us will join our Apex community. It's $97 a month, so it's practically free. You get a ton of access to myself and my team. We teach a master class every week, and we are now doing deal analysis every week. I mean, so we're just trying to give. Yeah. Ultimately, I make my money through buying the next deal. I expand my business through buying more real estate. And even though we've got millions of dollars invested on the island, there's a liquidity problem. So we're always looking for people who have some money that want to come alongside of us. And we've got multiple ways, once they're inside of our premium group, that they can participate with us and do deals with us and do deals together too, right? Like, so it's truly a community. And we just did a video yesterday where 3 different parts of it. Basically, there's a finder where you can make money as a finder. And so there was a young 22-year-old kid who found a great deal. There's an operator, a 45 or 50 something year old guy who will operate a hotel. And then another guy in the community had the money. So it just all got wrapped up in a tiny little bow right there. And it was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we're looking to do inside of this community, is to see more real estate get purchased and deals get done. And all 3 of these avatars or ways that people can make money came together and found each other in one little spot. Perfect. It was perfect. It was like the best deal that we've done. I was like just so proud of it, because that's what we want to see, is more of that happening.
I can get behind that. So a finder, and an operator and a funder.
Correct.
You got those 3 people right there. I will take the funder part, because I don't mind taking a little bit of funds and then putting this way and getting it into the hands of people who can actually build up different properties. And also for the people here in Puerto Rico to actually fix up those houses that need to be fixed up. That makes sense to me. And I can de-risk some of my profits, because you can't just sit on cash. It's a melting ice cube. And if you know anything about inflation, you know exactly where I'm going with this. So for me, it's always the things that I'm doing, and that's why I'll be working with these guys in the future.
Yeah. So, I mean, the funder, first in, first out, right? I mean, that's generally the way that goes. And you could kind of come in and fund and stay in for the big portion of the upside and actually participate in like the profits, or you can come in as a lender and you get double-digit returns and you get safety, security, you go to sleep at night, and you know that if something bad happens, you're in at such a great valuation. You're, again, first in, first out. It's really, and I've been all 3. I've been a finder my whole life. I became a pretty good operator when I moved to Puerto Rico, because it's more than just fixing a house up. We're running hotels and things like that. I've found that where I see life going is the funding portion. And when I was young, people were funding me. Now that I'm a little bit older and established, I'm funding people like Adon and my son McKenna and others inside of Apex. So
excellent. So great information. Links in the description for everybody. But lastly, we should be talking about risk because, you know, we're everybody here in the digital asset space, we're used to risk, but not outsized risk. So when you talked about, okay, you can put the funds in here and then it's pretty much stable. Just walk us through the stability and the safety, because Robert, I like you, but I can't trust anybody.
Sure, I get that. And I'm very risk averse. So people would look at what I do, and for someone who's not in the real estate business, they would say, well, that's pretty risky. But we're buying properties at very low valuations because they need so much work, and then we're forcing the equity along the way.
Right.
So the asset that we buy, let's say a lending, I go to a foreclosure sale and I buy something for 120 grand, and I borrow the money from you.
Right.
You're coming in at $120,000 on a property that we've identified that we think is worth close to $300,000 after repairs.
Yeah.
And from day one, I start fixing it, improving it, and making it more. So you get in at a low valuation to start, and over time, I'm making it more valuable until I ultimately sell it. So we like to de-risk on the way in, right? So as real estate investors, and I know you're a real estate investor, we are making our money when we buy it, and we're kind of setting it. We sort of know what's going to happen, and we're buying things that are very distressed. So the risk of it getting worse is very low. I mean, if you see some of the things that we buy, you would go, wow, it can't really get a lot worse unless it just gets knocked down. And even then, we're usually buying things at such a good price that we could just rebuild, right? And then there's other things to de-risk, like you can have insurance, but on the side of the lending, you de-risk by having that first in, first out, right? Like, so you don't want to have the asset, but if you got the asset, there's massive upside for you.
Right.
So if something bad were to happen to the operator and you end up with the asset, it generally should be more profitable for you, not less.
Yeah. And then people would say, I know people are going to say, what? It is Puerto Rico, so hurricanes. And what Robert talked about as far as like sturdy houses here, it's not like the States. The States, we build everything with wood, paletas, and we use sheetrock, which if you're in a storm, talk to anybody in Houston or Florida, they'll tell you, you're pretty much, your house just gets wiped out. If I got a storm here in this house, or any of the other places I have, it's all concrete.
Right.
So it'll be a pain in the A, but trust me when I say this, it is actually recoverable as opposed to like other houses that are out there.
Yeah, if the water comes in a house in Florida and it goes 6 inches, 8 inches up the walls, I'm pretty much having to rip out the drywall, 3 feet up, and then redo it all.
Right.
Here, if the water comes in 6 inches or 3 feet or fills the room, we wait till the water goes down, we hose it all off, we clean it up. It's not generally going to, unless you're right on the ocean and the ocean takes it out. We've seen that. But for the most part, these houses are built so well, and they're built to withstand those storms. So I get it all the time. Like, what are you going to do if a hurricane comes? Well, I've been living in Florida. There's 6 or 7 times as many hurricanes hit the state of Florida as hit Puerto Rico in the same timeline. And so, I don't want to say it's not a risk. Certainly it's a risk, but it's one of those things where if a hurricane comes, we're likely to buy more really good assets too. So
excellent. I did not know that. See, now I can tell my friends, look, Puerto Rico is not as dangerous as you think it is. It's actually a great place.
Now Florida's a lot bigger, right? So it has more space to get hit by the hurricanes and a couple of different bodies of water that can bring them.
Sure.
But still, there's if you just look at it, you can see many, many more storms hit Florida than Puerto Rico.
Excellent. Well, Robert, that was pretty good. I don't want to keep up too much of your time. It was a good primer or intro for what's happening. I'm going to have you back on. But before we take off, is there any last words of wisdom for the investors out there? Because you've been in this game for a long time. So what are the things you can tell people who are kind of worried right now about their portfolio or about investments or whatever else? How do you see it?
Yeah, so I mean, everybody says diversification is good. I have a small portion of my money in the blockchain. An even smaller portion is affected by like the stock market. We're pretty much real estate investors. And I've seen the cycles that you guys go through, and you have these massive ups and then crashes, right? We don't get that in real estate. And if you can be cognitive of the fact that it's going to crash 80% when you get up there and you're in profit, take some profit and buy a house, buy an apartment complex, or lend an operator some money on a real estate investment and have some security, right?
Have some security and don't freak out and be a little bit relaxed and not have to undergo all the stress. So look, everybody, everything we talked about today is going to be links in the description. You can find the community there in the description itself. But Robert, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. We'll have you on again.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks very much for having me. I really do appreciate it.
See you. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Like and subscribe. We'll see you. We'll see you on the next one. But actually, we're going to be talking to my friend here, Robert Crager, who we just interviewed. Robert, thanks for coming on the show. I know we had a little bit of back and forth. Sorry about that time zone thing. I got a little confused today.
No, that's okay. No problem. It worked out really well. We got to do some research on one of our next videos coming up. So while we were sitting and waiting, we took valuable use of the time.
Yeah. So everybody, of course, this is Robert, who we just interviewed. If you have questions for him, and I see there's a bunch in the comment section already, just write them down or post them right here, and we'll go through them as many as we can for about another 20 minutes or so, because I don't want to keep Robert forever. He's got some things to do. But as you're writing those questions, Robert, tell us about this recent deal you guys just did. How'd you guys find it? Where is it? And how distressed is that asset?
Which is what are you asking me about?
Sorry. So the different prospect you guys were just doing recently. You said you were just out there looking for another house, another.
Yeah, no. So this morning in Rincon, I went to an inspection. I'm buying it's a little guest house in a place called Sandy Beach, Rincon, and we got some really, really excellent seller financing. So it's something I talked about on the video you just had inside of our Apex community. We had a finder find it and put the deal together with just an incredible amount of 0% interest seller financing. And then we have an operator who's going to come in and run it, and a third guy who came in and he's going to fund the initial down payment and any repairs that are needed. So I met the guy who's got the money today, and we were doing an inspection, and we're going to close on it in the next couple of weeks. And then we'll do some pretty fun things between that property and a property that I've already got operational in Rincon, where we'll do some live events and have people come in and learn about real estate investing and stay in our properties. Probably we'll do it during hurricane season, because that's when nobody wants to come and the rooms will be empty. So
that's right. Hey, if you guys, well, that's pretty cool. For the live events, would you guys do those in like Rincon, or would it be like in San Juan, or where would it be? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so we've done a few live events in San Juan up until now, but I'm hoping that I can do some live events in Rincon, because we've got 30 rooms or so out there that we can fill up, and that's a good size group to put together. So if we got 25 couples or partners to come and stay for a few days and do some adventure, do some learning, that'd be a good ticket item.
That'd be really good. So everybody who's in the chat right now, I see a bunch of questions. We'll go through those. But if that sounds like something you'd like to do, come to Puerto Rico, meet me and Robert, and just talk shop. I think that just let me know in the comment section, either in the live, or if you're watching the recording of this, put that also in the comments so I can just kind of gauge that. But here's our first question from Spacewalk. Crazy taxes, Jones Act. Must be really difficult to navigate construction in Puerto Rico. I got two questions for you. How difficult is it for you guys to go get the permits, and how difficult is it to find the good guys to do the construction?
Yeah, both are challenging, right? So if you've been in this business, and so I'm going to assume that nobody has, but it's significantly harder on the island of Puerto Rico than it is in the States, but it's not so difficult that it's not worth doing. So if something would take me 30 days to get a permit in Florida, maybe it takes me 60, 90, or 120 days on the island of Puerto Rico. As far as getting materials in the Jones Act, if I go to the Home Depot in Central Florida and compare prices to the Home Depot on the island of Puerto Rico, they're identical. So I don't feel any effects. If I'm trying to import from China, it's going to go to Florida and then come back to the island, and there's going to be a cost associated with that. So as far as the labor, it's the same. Like I've struggled for nearly 30 years to find good contractors. And generally I get their best work and their best price when we first start a relationship. 2 or 3 years in, I start to get a triple triple net price, and their work is no longer any good, and we part ways. And that's been kind of the pattern that we've gone through for a couple, almost 3 decades now. So
excellent. I got another question for you. Before I do that, I just want to remind you, I got a great guy for you, Jesus. I gave you his number. That guy is a fantastic electrician and a plumber. You cannot get better than Jesus.
Great.
I'll put that out there so then I can tell Jesus. See, I did tell you. I did talk to Robert about that. Satvia says, does Robert here, or does he struggle to get insurance coverage for his properties?
That's a great question. So the answer is yes, but I struggle more in Florida than I do in Puerto Rico. Insurance is going to be expensive anywhere where you get these storms, right? Insurance companies are smart. You saw what they did in California months before a big fire. They're not dumb. So they're going to charge premiums for being near the coastline and being in places where the eye of the storm is going to come right over the top of you. So yeah, it's more expensive than it could be in other places. But I pay more in Florida right now for most types of homeowners insurance than I do on the island. And I do a lot of self-insuring. So what does that mean? That means that if I'm going to be in and out of a property and it's a small project, maybe less than $500,000, especially on the island of Puerto Rico, I'll just kind of risk it and take the chance that I'm going to get in and out. And we track everything, and we're very anal about it. We've had a couple of times where the hurricane has come, and so we get to measure what do we spend after a storm leaves, and especially in Florida, versus what would we have spent if we had insured every property we bought. And we've saved millions of dollars over the last 25 years. So self-insurance is what we typically use. If it starts to get to be big ticket items, or if I'm doing nightly rentals where there are people and things like that, we'll have different types of insurance policies. And those aren't that hard to get. Like you can get a liability policy just about anywhere, and they're not really difficult.
Yeah, I talked to a bunch of people who were in Puerto Rico for Maria. And they said, you know what? They said, yeah, our insurance company did pay, but they dragged their feet forever, and they didn't pay what they were supposed to pay. And it just took a long time. And I had to pay all those premiums for all this for the entire time frame. It was very difficult. And a lot of people have told me, like, I'm just not using insurance. I just save the money, I put it away, and then when something happens, like we're not going to get a Cat 5 hurricane tomorrow, but it could happen. But you see a lot of tropical storms, which can evolve into something. But yeah, I've seen the houses that have weathered the storm. Some, like you said in the video, if you're like right on the beach, then you've got problems. But if you're inland more, you're going to do pretty well. So I can see that. Here's another one. A1 asks this question: can one own a multifamily, live in it too, but still get tax breaks from it? I know you can't with a single family home. Yeah.
So I was just studying for a video we're going to do. There's a thing called Statute 132 that exempts long-term rents from taxes on the island of Puerto Rico.
Really?
And it looks like it's going to be extended at least through 2040. It's supposed to sunset at the end of 2025. It started in 2011. They've continuously kind of extended it. It looks like now they're either going to extend it to at least 2040, but it may just have kind of an evergreen, never-ending sunset. So that would mean that you could buy a 4-family home, live in one unit, and take the tax write-off on the interest that you pay to the bank, and take the income from the other 3 units and pay no income tax on it. It's a pretty damn cool way to make a living, and it's available to everyone on the island. So that's something that the island complains a lot about, Act 60, where there's a portion of Act 60 that they get excluded from. This is absolutely not excluding anybody. This is like, the way that I read the law, you don't even have to live on the island. You just have to set yourself up properly. And these are intended for long-term housing for someone's primary residence with at least a 1-year lease or more. So that it's just an amazing house hack, right? You get the best of all of the worlds.
Hey, you know what? So I know in the video we talked about there was a title, Am I Gentrifying Puerto Rico? And I linked it on the website. I don't think I linked it here, but I linked to your YouTube channel and to your community. But talk to us just about that, because there's this whole thing of like, well, you're coming in and you're raising up the prices. But yet you talked in the video about there's 250 to 300,000 vacant, or you call them zombie homes, that nobody can really do much with because they can't get a loan. So people can't move in those houses. Even if you can give them to at like a reasonable rate, it's not going to happen because they can't get the loan, or there's a problem with finding decent contractors. So just give an overbroad about that one.
Yeah. So, and I actually saw after your live yesterday, someone put a comment in there that said, hey, what if there's a guy with $100,000 and he would buy a house for $100,000 and go to the bank, but he can't buy it because it's distressed. And then someone comes in and buys it and fixes it up and sells it for $200,000. Well, it was always a $200,000 house that just was sitting there in disrepair, and it needed someone with cash, someone with the ability to come in and buy it and then fix it up so that it could get bank financing. Because you talked about it with me on the video we did. The banks just do not lend on anything that's even slightly outside of the box. That means it has to pass all the inspections. And, you know, these zombie houses, they don't pass any inspections. You can't turn the lights on. The water doesn't work. They're generally don't have doors and windows, and the roof is leaking, right? I mean, it's just, it's a mess. And so there are so many of these properties that can just be bought and turned around and then put back on the market. And I'm a capitalist, right? I believe that if you have prices going up, it's usually a supply and demand issue. We've got more demand for the houses than we have houses. And so there are 300,000 zombie houses sitting there that could be put back on the market really rather easily if the right people come around and can make it happen, right? And generally that's going to be a local person who knows the person who left the house, and maybe they've moved to the States, but they can get hold of that house and then they can get it fixed up and put it back on the market. And for us, we've made a living selling to working class people, which means when we're doing flips, we're selling to FHA buyers, and it's people from the island. It's people who have families that want to live on the island.
Yeah, I gotcha. And you know what? It comes down to, because people will ask in the comments later, they'll say, well, why? Because there's a higher return on investment than, say, like Bitcoin. Because, you know, you're not going to be out of profit if you go over 4-year cycles, which so far has proven true. But I will, like when I talk about real estate, I talk about the anxiety sometimes that you have, and then just not having another revenue stream to get into those dips. But also it's another thing that goes beyond that. I think it's a bigger thing, which is, if you just put everything into crypto digital assets and you hold on to that, that's great for yourself. But what are you really creating and doing, right? When you have these hard money loans, that means that you can rehabilitate a house. And then the people that come behind that, they have a place to actually live. And the people that actually build onto that, they have a place to actually work. And the maintenance that actually generates is actual job creation. So I know, like, I understand, I mean, me and the audience, we understand that, but I just want to make a point that sometimes it's good to have a little diversification, but it's also good to actually, you know, do other things that can actually be like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, it's nice to give back to the community, right? So we now have built portfolios of real estate in a couple of different places, and anywhere we go, we're wanting to leave it better off than we found it. Yeah. And so we want to do that by creating jobs. We want to do that by creating housing. We want to do that by creating other real estate investors who get out of a broken system where they're in a job they hate, or they're coming to the end of, typically I'm talking to people who are coming to the end of a career, and they want their money to start working hard for them, and they want to do it in a safe way. And I think this is still universally true. Most wealth is either created with real estate or stored in real estate. So your group is going to go create a bunch of wealth doing something other than real estate, but it's still a really, really good idea to park some money in real estate, especially cash flowing assets that are going to appreciate over time.
Yeah. Again, cash flowing assets that appreciate over time. That's a big one. Here's a question from J2 Day. What are the areas in the island Apex has developed the most?
Yeah. San Juan metro area is probably where we've spent the vast majority of our time and efforts, but I've crisscrossed the island. We've done everything from the island to Culebra down to the very far southwest tip of the island in Cabo Rojo, and Rincon to the other side of the island. So we've what to Ponce. Yeah, we've crisscrossed the island, but we like the San Juan metro area, and right now I like the north coast headed west towards Rincon. So I'm doing a lot of stuff. I moved kind of halfway between Rincon and San Juan so that I could put my eyes on stuff out west.
Yeah, looking good. Gotcha. So all over the place because there's deals to be had everywhere. How about this one? Is Robert familiar with duplex or multiplex VA loans? Very interested in Puerto Rico, not just FHA, but VA. And actually, we have a military base, do we not?
Yeah, we still have Fort Buchanan,
Uh-huh.
which is in Guaynabo, and VA loans work here on the island. That loan that they're talking about will work up to a 4-family house. If you get above 4, then it's a different type of loan. But you can use your VA to buy a single family, a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex, and that's that house hack we talked about briefly
Yeah,
at the start here.
I like that. What about this? Here's a good one. What are the best tax incentives in Puerto Rico?
Ha! Yeah, so I'm just a real estate investor. I'm not a tax expert, but I really love long-term rents not being taxed. That's how we've made a lot of our money. We've got 80 to 100 doors long-term rented on the island right now, and so that being tax-free means that I can come and go back home, and I don't pay tax on that portion of my income, and that's pretty good for me. I really like that one. I think you're probably a part of what was Act 22, where you don't
Act
have to pay
60.
capital gains. Now it's Act 60,
Yep.
and you don't have to pay personal capital gains. That's pretty tremendous for anybody who's investing in the blockchain, because when you sell, you pay no tax whatsoever. That's a requirement of living on the island, and most closely tied to the island. There are hoops you have to jump through in order for that to take effect for you. There are a lot of good incentives on the island. I will say this: Puerto Rico's open for business, and they're very friendly and intentional about bringing people who are going to do business and start businesses and employ people on the island. And one other thing I'll mention is that like 97% of the island is an opportunity zone, which is just a phenomenal deal. Where are you familiar with opportunity zones?
It's what my wife usually works in for her units.
Oh, okay. So you're familiar with it, and you can buy a Class A property on the coast in Puerto Rico because the whole island is an opportunity zone, where generally in the States, it's just going to be this one small carve out that you have to go to this location. And like in Orlando, Florida, it's, one small portion of Orlando is an opportunity zone, and they have them in each municipality, but the whole island is an opportunity zone. So it's something to look into.
That's crazy. And then for me, and then X60, if anyone wants to learn more about that, I did a couple of videos, but watch this one where I did an update 1 year later, where I talk about Puerto Rico and paying 0 crypto taxes, which would be capital gains. However, be aware that you still have to pay specific taxes. You still have to pay corporate tax. You still have to pay income tax, and also you have to give a certain amount to specific charities for every single year. Also, if you make over so much funds, you have to start to hire people within Puerto Rico. So just be aware that it's not just like a free thing. People say, "Oh, there's no taxes." There's taxes. It's just no capital gains. And this year, since the market hasn't done so great, I don't really have many. I wouldn't have had many capital gains because the market just didn't do what it was supposed to do. But here we are.
Yeah.
Let's see. Zero says, I'm a plumber in Holland and out of money. Then Zero, I would like you to come this way to Puerto Rico. We need plumbers. We need electricians. We need contractors. We need good guys. And I need people like that to come there.
Yeah, that's for sure. Anybody who's got that type of business that comes to the island, if you can just show up on time and do reasonably good work at a good, fair price, you're going to have an amazing business.
Yeah, exactly. There's a good one. What's the minimum one can invest or fund to deal with this group? That's a very minutia type of question. But Robert, has there been like a very low amount for doing the funding and then maybe like a high amount? And this would just be ranges. This is like my Bitcoin price predictions.
So the range probably to be involved in a small deal is 50 to 100 grand for a small flip. We'll sometimes partner people together if they only have 50 grand and it say needs 150 grand. We'll put a couple different people together. But generally speaking, we're looking at investments of more than that. So our typical flip would be like $120,000 purchase and then another 50,000 in renovation, and then a sale price in the mid to high twos.
Got it. Someone says Porto Trumpo. Trumpo Rico, a lot of Trump comments.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see how Trump does for the island. I am hopeful that he's going to be good for the world, but he makes me nervous.
He makes a lot of people nervous. I think that's why the market is what it is. But we just had Lutnick come on to CNBC, and they talked about there was the tariff that I guess Trump went against and said, yeah, we're going to allow for computers and microprocessors and things to be exempt. And Howard Lutnick came on and said, that's not what everybody's reporting. And in actuality, it's a pause for about a month or two, but it's going to be in its own category. He goes, so we're still going to put the tariffs on all those things and every single thing that's out there. So if you think it's not going to be microprocessors, it is. And they talk about, reshoring. So we'll see how it works. I thought that was going to be a big boom for the tech stocks on Monday, but now with the clarification, we'll see if everybody still wants to buy in.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. That would be it. Zero says, can I bring my kids? Absolutely. Bring as many as you can.
Sure. What a life it is here, you guys. I mean, this is beautiful beaches and it's sunny every day and always warm.
Yeah. And then I think this will be a good one to get out because, Robert, you've been here for quite some time. No big deal. Darren says, what percentage of the 300K homes are in tough, crime-ridden neighborhoods? And I've watched a bunch of your videos, and what you do is, you'll take a look at the house, and then you'll kind of take a look at the neighborhood itself and take a look at comps.
Yeah.
And it looks like most of these places that you go through look pretty good to me. I mean, just except for those houses that are run down.
Yeah. So look, in every neighborhood, even like Dorado Beach East, which is they're selling multi-million-dollar mansions, there are these zombie houses. There are these rundown houses. You'll have a beautiful house, and then a zombie house. And it doesn't matter if you're in a working class neighborhood or a gated community like Dorado Beach East. So the percentage of houses that we do that are in crime-ridden areas, really it's zero. So one thing Puerto Rico does is they have government housing that sort of, you can tell when it's a bad area and stay away from those areas. They're not hard to kind of get the feel for it and know it's the places where people are going to do bad things, and you can sort of tell. The houses we buy are working class houses, so they're safe neighborhoods. These are people like you and me, or at least the way I grew up, right? We get up and put our shoes on, go to work every day, and expect to come home and have a nice, safe place to live, and that describes most of the island of Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Exactly. It's for the most part, it's the best place I've lived. I'll just say that. I've
never really felt unsafe, except one day I accidentally turned into a place that I knew I shouldn't have been in, and we just left immediately. Right? I'm not supposed to be there because the people that are there buying drugs and they're doing bad things. And if you're doing bad things, you can get yourself in trouble. But we didn't have any trouble. We just turned around and left.
It's a smart move. Hey, lastly, before we get out of here, this is a good one. Can a carpenter come to Puerto Rico, buy enough tools to get started there? And this, I think this would be a good question for any kind of contractor who is good at what they do. Yeah,
absolutely. I think if you come up with a service-oriented business, and yes, you can go to the Home Depot and get all the tools you need and get yourself in business pretty quick. And once you do a good job, you'll start to get a word of mouth going, and it's a very, very lucrative place to be a contractor right now.
Yeah, I'll even go so far as to say this. If you move to Puerto Rico and you're a contractor, I'll have meetups, and I'll introduce you to all the right people. I need as many friends as I can possibly get there, because it's great to be there. I just need more people to hang out with. So,
yeah.
Robert, thanks so much for stopping by. And again, sorry about that time zone thing. Everybody, there's a link in the description. You can find Robert's YouTube channel and also the free community. It's right there for you. So check it out. But again, Robert, as time goes on and we start doing deals, I'll have to have you back on and we'll talk about it.
This has been fun. I look forward to it. Yeah, you guys, we just hit 20,000 on the YouTube channel. So that was like a milestone for us. We're pretty happy with that. If you guys come check us out, we spotlight Puerto Rico. We show you what we do, and we talk about why we do it. And we also have a spotlight on Puerto Rico entrepreneurs. And it's just a great place to think about maybe landing if you hit it big in the crypto space, there's a good life waiting for you here.
Shoot, not even hit it medium. You'll be fine. All right, everybody. So thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate it. If you like today's video, like and subscribe. And that is it for this one. We'll see you guys on the next one. Adios.
God bless.